Good morning, or rather good afternoon, everyone. I have Eve Gino with us. She is one of our beautiful soul sisters that's going to be graduating from WiseMind Soul Warrior Yoga Psychology School. And I would love to just start with you sharing a little bit about your yoga journey and then how you and I connected.
Sure. So I had been practicing yoga for probably 2 years before I found you or stumbled upon you online. And I was seeking to grow in my practice in a different direction than just a physical state. And really, I live in Orlando, Florida, which is a large metropolitan area. So you would think that there would be something like that around, but there really wasn't. And I didn't even know if it existed until I found you. And I was like, this is exactly what I've been looking for. And I reached out to you. And you offered to call me, which I thought was very generous, given that you have a large operation to run, and that you were willing to take the time out to talk to someone completely new, a stranger that you knew nothing of, or wasn't referred by a friend or anything like that, just to make sure that you and I and what I was seeking and what you were offering were a good fit, which I found very comforting right off the bat, because it wasn't like a call for a hard sales pitch, or to just try to pull one more person in. It was really about, for you, making sure that you were going to be able to offer something valuable. And so I found that very, very comforting. Yeah.
Oh, I appreciate that. I remember the first time, like you and I getting on too. And I've talked about this like with some other calls that I've gotten on, where it's just like an instant soul sister connection. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like you and I, it was just like, it was one of those instants. And so you and I are big believers in like divine intervention.
Yes.
And, God putting the dots together, that he somehow orchestrates all this for you and I to get connected, right? When you think about the millions and billions, actually billions of people, Eve, that are on Facebook,
Yes.
right? The fact that I showed up in your feed, right? Like just that alone is like, do you know what I'm saying? Like the percentage of that is so small. Does that make sense? Like the fact that
the algorithm doesn't, put you with everyone. And there are billions, as you said, people either on Insta or Facebook or both. And we always think, I think as scrollers, we think, oh, everything just shows up in front of us. And it really doesn't. There's tons of information, data that you don't see on a day-to-day basis. So what you do see, sometimes you have to really pay attention to the fact that it means something.
Right. That sometimes it's like almost like a sign, like, hello, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. That's a yoga term, like a yoga phrase.
Yep.
But yeah, the percentage, I mean, we could talk about like you said, the algorithm stuff is crazy, right? I mean, when you look at the percentage, like even when we're doing marketing stuff and say our reach is like 4 million people, I'm just throwing out a number.
Right.
There might be 200,000 people of those, you know what I'm saying? And then they're like the percentage of that actually see it.
So, yes.
Yeah. So it's crazy. Anyway. Okay. So, so you shared a little bit already about what it was like to get on a call with me. And I really appreciate like your gratitude, actually, like that you're even, acknowledging the fact that I do get on these calls with students that I don't know. Like you said, I'm there like showing up in full, like no expectation of let's just chat about here's what you're struggling with, or here's the goals that you want to achieve potentially out of a program. And here's where you want to go. And here's the gap. And is there a fit, right? Is there a fit with us, teacher, student? And is there a fit with the program? And so that's where I see it more as a custom consultation versus, like you said, a sales pitch.
Right.
I'm not here to want to talk anybody into doing something they don't want to do. We want to bring people in that are ready for transformation, if that makes sense. And they're they're ready to step into this, even though no one's ever 100% ready, and that's okay. But being able to step beyond like all the fears and doubts and all the things, the thousand things that your thinking mind tells you why not to take action. Okay. And that's getting on a call, because it will literally give you 1,000 reasons not to do that. Okay.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
And
I
fear
went through
is
that
one of them.
myself. You saw that.
Yeah, I know, like when we first started talking, and then as we talked more, and then we connected after the call, and we
Yep.
worked through things, we worked through your questions, and we worked through all that stuff. And,
Yep.
if someone's really wanting to step into transformation, and they're here and they're wanting to really change their life, we're here to support those students. And I also work with them on, different financial ways that we can support them as well. And that because I worked with you on
Absolutely.
that too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm here. I can put custom things together. So I want to put that out there, because those students out there that are scared, that are like, oh my gosh, this program is like $20,000. It's not. And second of all, I will work with you. I've worked with students putting custom plans together since I started. Okay.
Yes. I mean, that I was going to mention that because
Yeah.
I don't think if you weren't so flexible and offered different options for payment and for timing and things like that, that I wouldn't have been able to participate. And I really, really wanted to. And so I feel like that's just another part of something I'm grateful for in terms of what you offer. And it shows your commitment to your calling and to your mission versus, just to the business side. I mean, there has to be a business side, but it goes for you, it goes beyond that. And that is so important for people to understand that there are options if you feel overwhelmed, and that it's undoable or untainable. Yeah, that Jennie will definitely work with you to figure those pieces out so that you can be where you want to be.
Yeah. I appreciate that, girl.
Yeah, you're going to hear me say a lot of stuff today I've never said to you before.
All right. Well, I'm going to put the link in the comments. Okay. So it's, actually, I'm sorry, I put the wrong link in the comments. Let me put a different link in the comments. It's Monday morning, girl. I think I need another cup of coffee.
I'm drinking mine while we're talking.
Okay, so I'm putting the link in the comments. You can book a call there. Again, no pressure. Okay. We already said that. I'm sure we'll say it again. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about some of the things that you've seen on your own personal transformation through this. And let me just take a minute to share, and then you can kind of share a little bit more, Eve. I feel like we connected in so many ways because we're so similar in our past patterns, right? Like we both come from a corporate backgrounds. We both have struggled with like perfectionism and like, maybe overworking sometimes, or maybe pushing ourselves too hard, I guess is a good word.
Mm-hmm.
I shared with you how I pushed myself to burnout. And that's one of the reasons why I do what I do, that there is like a real story behind why I run this program. Right. And a big part of it is I don't want other students to have to suffer to the point where I did. I want to be able to take like 6 years and put it in 6 months. I don't want anyone to have to go to that place of the dark soul that I did. So I'm sitting here like trying to give people like, here's wisdom that has taken me like 10 years of therapy and training and coaching to get this point. So there's all of that. And then there's like our belief systems that are the same, right?
Yeah.
So there's that connection as soul sisters. And I want you to share, because I know through this journey that you obviously ran into some challenges with you getting breast cancer. And originally you were going to start with us last July, which you did. And then somewhere in that time, you got, diagnosed with breast cancer. And so I remember you like reaching out to me, and you were a little bit in a panic, like, and I was just like, girl, don't even worry about this. Like, we will be here and we will support you when the timing is right, when you need us to support you. So we decided to put you into this last cohort that started in February. Right. So share a little bit about like what that was like what you want to share, and how has the program also supported you like through that healing process as well?
Yeah. Okay, so like you said, we connected on many different levels, and I started with the cohort that was before this one that we're in now, and I started to see immediate changes, just in myself in terms of working through having the opportunity to work with others and yourself, um, through perfectionism and through the the mother worker, self, always extending beyond what we even have to give. Um, and I found myself feeling much more comfortable and willing to say no to things that I normally would have said yes to, um, because I wasn't full heartedly into them. And this was happening. This transformation, this change was not only happening in my personal life, but it was also happening at work. If someone asked me to help, of course I'm always going to help. But if opportunities were being presented and someone said, "Hey, do you want to work on this new project?" I really normally would be the high achiever. Yes, I'm type A personality, absolutely, and that one too, and that one too, and that one too, no problem. And the older I got, the more I realized, like, this really isn't benefiting me, personally and or professionally.
Mm-hmm.
And someone's getting something out of this, but it's not me. And so I started to look at things more of, am I able to add value, to what is being offered to me, and or am I able to gain something from that in terms of education or experience, um, versus just being the yes person.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that there were times where I was like, no, I mean, some big things. And I said, I don't think that I'm the right fit for that. Or, maybe we should allow somebody else to step in and take that opportunity, to shine or whatever. And then that was at work. And then even with friends, there's lots of times, you are afraid to say no, or like, I think I'm going to skip this one because you're afraid they're not going to ask you next time. Right. And it was letting go of some of that, maybe control or expectation, and just kind of falling into what will be, and accepting that the universe has a plan. We just have to kind of let it happen. And
Mm-hmm.
taking my whole demeanor changed to the point where, um, my CIO at work would say, and a VP had directly asked me, "What are you doing different? Like, what's changed? Something's changed."
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I realized, okay, it's not just a choice that I'm making now, but it's a lifestyle that I'm like living and embracing in terms of taking time for myself. The program forces you in a way also to do a lot of self focus, and there's shadow work, there is breath work, meditation, and all of these things together. Maybe not all of them will work for you, or will you find them, highly valuable, but there are niches and things that you will find that work. And that's the beauty of the program itself in terms of the broad stroke of education that it offers and experiences, that you can find what works for you. And if you're seeking to find more peace, um, to find that, you look at, sometimes I would look at people and say, wow, they're so calm, or like even toned. And I'm like, I've never been like that. I don't think I can ever be like that. I'm a goer, goer, goer. And that has changed for sure, but in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot less of me participating in things, even conversations, even at home. There can be, families can have drama and turmoil, and I just don't participate. And that is unlike me, because before I would have to try to maybe control the narrative so that everybody was happy, because I'm the peacemaker from childhood and I have to make sure everything's good. And I've overcome that. And I was in therapy for 12 years, and I've overcame a lot that happened during childhood, but not that one piece, not that, you have to be the peacemaker. Everyone has to be happy. And if they're not, then you're on edge. And that whole vicious cycle of PTSD and the reaction that happens before you even know it's happening has definitely diminished. I'm not going to say it's completely gone, but it has greatly diminished by me not participating and choosing to not participate anymore. Like, they're not my responsibility. I'm my responsibility. My children are my responsibility, but adults, they need to be responsible for themselves, right? And so we have to realize that the actions and behaviors that we portray, our children are watching those as well. And so it's really important for them to see that that's not the expectation, you know, and that growing and changing as we get older, all through our life, you're never done. You should never be done learning. And so they've watched me go through this process and do things differently, and you know, go into the learning center and do my sessions or my lessons at night. And so they'll ask, what are you doing? And I'll tell them. And so it gives them that inspiration that you're just never really done. And then, you know, after I started the first class, I got diagnosed with breast cancer. And realized I couldn't stay. But I was devastated. But you were very gracious in terms of, like you said, you're like, do not worry about this. We'll fit you in another class. Just do what you have to do. And I was very, very lucky. So I want to talk to any woman, take this opportunity, any woman out there that's listening, listen to your gut and do what you know is right for you. My diagnosis came really by accident. I had a small mass and they biopsied it and it came back precancer, but non-cancerous. And they asked if I wanted to have a lumpectomy. And I said yes. And they really tried to kind of talk me out of it. They're like, it's only 0.5 centimeters. You don't need to have it taken out. And something about inside my gut and where it was within the breast, it was like right behind the nipple. And I have had other lumps and things throughout the years, and I've never really bothered with them. They always came back non-cancerous, and I was like, okay, fine. This one, something inside me was like, no. So, you know, I scheduled a lumpectomy. They took it out, and when they took it out, they were like, yep, it was non-cancerous. However, in the clean margins around the mass, we found LCIS and DCIS, which are what's lobular and ductal carcinoma in situ. And what that means is that I had two cancers, both are aggressive, but they had not broken out of the milk glands or the milk ducts. It was still contained. That's what's in situ means. And you know, it was only found in one, but it is a dual disease. And so, you know, they gave me the option of taking some medicines, basically drugs, to tamoxifen to try to see if we could keep it contained and that it wouldn't grow. And if it started to move, then we could take more action. Or, you know, if I really wanted to be drastic about it, I could have a mastectomy. And I did not think my surgeon, great, awesome surgeon. I got very lucky to end up with him. And he's like, you know, he told me on a Friday and said, just Monday, call me and tell me what you want to do. We'll do whatever you want, but just tell me what you want to do. But I want you to think about it. And I didn't have to think twice. Like, I had already made up my mind years ago that if anything ever happened, this was what I was going to do. And so I chose to do a double mastectomy, even though we didn't know if it was in the other breast, because for many reasons for myself, it would just add a peace of mind. And I felt like it was just going to be better for my overall health mentally as well. And so we did the double mastectomy in January. And when they biopsied that other breast, it also had LCIS and DCIS in it. So again, I was just listening to my body, listening to my gut, and knowing what was right for me, and then doing that. And you know, there are many options available, and it's easy, not easy or hard one way or the other. I think everyone has their own opinion about what's best for them. But you know, a lot of conventional medicine will try to talk you into maybe a slower path, one of less aggression. And for me, I felt like that was, for me, I needed to have peace of mind. And so that's why I chose what I did. And I'm glad that I did, because I'm here and I'm still here for my kids. And I'm very grateful that we caught it very early and I was able to have options where I did not have to have chemotherapy or radiation. Can have a whole discussion about that on some other talk. But your patience and your ability to be very compassionate, having not been through that circumstance or situation, was very comforting to me. As I said before, that I really appreciated the ability to have the flexibility, because I had to go through the surgery itself, which took a while, 8 weeks, 9 weeks to recover from. And then I went back to work for a little bit and then went back out for reconstructive surgery, which I just had in July 11th. And so through all of that, the team support, the other, soul sisters that you find within the group, you really bond with one another. And it's a great experience that I don't think you can really put a dollar amount on. In the beginning, it's very overwhelming. You're like, wow, this is a lot to swallow. But once you're in and you're moving and you're growing and you're learning and you see the changes happening, it really is something that you can't, put a dollar to.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I'm so grateful for you that it all transpired the way it has. Because obviously anybody's immediate reaction, whether it's happening to you or when people hear breast cancer, right? It's like that's a super scary diagnosis for anybody. So I thought you handled it really well. Like you were very like, I don't want to say you weren't nonchalant. That's not the right word. It was more peaceful and calm. Like I felt when you were texting me, at least, that you kind of had this overall sense of like acceptance. And like you said, this is what I felt like I needed to do. And that's really amazing that you trusted your intuition and you trusted what your body was telling you, rather than, listening to what doctors have to say. Because like you just said, doctors aren't always right. We have to be able to be our own health advocate and our own patient advocate. And if our body's telling us something and if our gut is telling us something, we like you said, we got to listen to that.
Yes. Do your own research as well. Study, look up. Obviously, someone will make the joke like, oh, because you read it on the internet. It's true. But, there is a lot of great information out there. There's a lot of great organizations. The TTAC is the Truth About Cancer. They are a great organization for education on cancer and research and how to help heal the body without a lot of poison. And then I really feel like being in the program helped me sort of gain emotional control over what was happening. And I know maybe the word you were looking for is sort of nonchalant or matter of fact. Kind of goes together, because someone else said you were so matter of fact about it, but yet so positive. It was so weird. And I think it had a lot to do with my mindset of, well, there's nothing you can do to change it. It is what it is. Like, what are the steps going forward? What is the best path with the least amount of damage and the best survival rate? And for me, it's just a body part. I mean,
Right.
Creator gives us a body and a vessel. We have to protect it. And so for me, that was my way of staying here. And that was the path I chose. So, yeah.
Well, I love that because you are, you're living mindfulness, like you're living that letting go, right? Like being in a place of acceptance, being in a place of non-judgment. And that has been a huge kind of stepping stone for me as well. Mindfulness has been a huge part of my healing and transformation journey. And that's why we include mindfulness in the training, because it goes back to like some of the philosophies that you were just talking about letting things be what they are and not trying to change them and not bring your own expectations into any situation, right? Just, this is what it is.
Yeah.
and not trying to your point, have some of the trauma responses like that we've had in the past where we're trying to control something and that it's a trauma response.
Right.
Because we're trying to feel safe and we're trying to feel, in control. What we all
Yeah.
know, there really is no such
Oh.
thing as being in control,
No.
even though we might have a false sense of control. And I can say that because I'm raising my hand, right? That used to be me. So, and I love kind of just like hearing and watching you talking about your own transformation, because I can see a change even from the first time we talked till
Oh,
now.
really?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Oh, that's awesome.
So just like planting that seed for you, coming from, us having the same, type of struggles, right? We had a lot of the similar, the peacemaker, the perfectionist over, high, we'll say high achiever. High achiever is a different connotation. I'll say high achiever, people pleaser.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that peacemaker and people pleaser and perfectionism can all like tie together. And I think I shared with you too, it took me well into my 40s to figure out that at the root of all that was my, I am enough and I am worthy, right? And seeking that. And that
Mhm.
for me personally was at the root of all these other behavior patterns.
Right.
So once I was able to release that and transform it, then I was able to start focusing on some of these new patterns, like what you shared about you can be calm in the chaos, that you
Yes.
can have a legacy of peace, and that all these things can be happening in your life, including breast cancer, and
Mhm.
still be at that place of calm. Right.
Yep.
I found a notebook that I bought actually last year recently, and it said, calm is your superpower. I love that. Calm is your superpower.
I
Like,
love that. That's great.
um, okay. So changing subjects for a minute. First of all, did want to say one quick thing. I loved about you sharing about what your CIO and your VP and what the other people around you were noticing. Um,
Mhm.
it's really interesting because I'll share a quick story and then I want to kind of move on to something else. But I had interacted, gosh, I think this was a couple of years ago at this point, with some past colleagues that I knew when I was in corporate. Okay. And I
Mhm.
had not seen these colleagues in over 10 years. Okay. And I worked very closely with several of them for about 7, 8 years. Okay. So we had a very close working,
Yep. Like
work relationship. Right. And several of them, one of them was a guy, because most of the people I worked with were guys. And this gentleman was like, oh my, he could not believe the transformation of how different I was and how calm I was.
uh-huh.
And he just couldn't, because he knew me before, right? All of this and what I was like um in corporate, because I was completely not balanced. I didn't have stress resilience skills. I didn't even know what the heck mindfulness or even self-awareness was. I
Yeah.
didn't know that I could control my own thoughts and emotions, that's for sure.
Mhm.
And I was trying to control everything still. I was trying, perfectionism, overworking, people pleasing, all the things.
Yep.
Peacemaker. And I pulled all that stuff into work. I played peacemaker at work. I played people
Oh,
pleaser.
absolutely.
Yeah, perfectionism, right?
Yes.
All this, and it's so interesting that we're having this conversation, everyone, because this is totally organic. This is coming up because you pull all of that stuff, right? Not only into your personal relationships, but you pull that into work
Yeah.
and if you own a business. So whether you're working corporate or you're working, professionally, or you're working owning your own business,
Yep.
you pull all of this stuff into that realm as well. And unless you heal it and transform it, it's going to show up everywhere.
Yes. You can't just drop it at the door or like leave part of you. unless you transform that part of you, it's going with you wherever you go. So it's like, the whole, you can only run away from everyone else, but you can't run away from yourself. It's that. So
Right. But I love the fact that they observed that with you, that they could see the change.
yes, that's
And
affirming to me that something,
mhm,
not that I needed someone else's opinion or justification, but it came or out of nowhere. The comments came out of nowhere, and that's when I was like, oh wow, it's changed enough that people on the outside are seeing it. Now, family, I don't know if they've never said anything. I mean, they probably just feel like it's part of my growth. They've been through it with me, that and so it's almost like when you live with someone and they put on 10 pounds, you don't see it, that kind of thing.
mhm.
Um, but at for someone that I see on a regular basis outside of the home, to just have that light bulb kind of like, wait a second, what are you doing? Like, what is something changed? What changed? That's interesting. That was
That's
very interesting to me.
that's powerful. That's very powerful.
Yeah,
And that's very affirming, like you said. Like you didn't need that affirmation, you didn't need the validation, but
right.
it was nice that somebody around you that had been working with you and knew you well enough to be able to see a difference, that,
Yep.
that you were shifting and changing.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's more motivation for you to continue, right? Like you said, healing and transformation and being a student, I like to call it a student of life, is a lifelong journey, right?
Yep.
So I love that.
Absolutely.
And so I'm raising my hand here. That means there's hope for Eve and everybody else that hears this, that you are in kind of like that practice phase, I would say. And in some areas, you're probably in like embodiment, but you might have heard me talk about this before, that there's kind of three phases. It's like you get the wisdom and the knowledge, and then it turns into practice where you're actually practicing it on a daily basis. And then it becomes embodiment. And embodiment is when it becomes second nature. And it just, right. So, like the things that you were talking about with the emotional reactivity or emotion, controlling your thoughts, that all
Mhm.
becomes second nature because you've created the new neuron pathways. You've healed the heart and the body and the nervous system enough that it's just second nature, like the perfectionism, the inner critic perfectionist, or that need for control, or the type A personality. Like I'm literally a type B personality now.
Yes. Yeah. It changes you for
Yeah,
sure.
I
And
mean, I no longer am type A, and I was about as type A as you can get. Okay, super type A.
yep.
So if it can work for me, anybody out there who feels like they want to be a little bit more calm, a little bit more balanced, a little
Yeah.
bit more compassionate, less judgmental of yourself and others around you, less critical, book a call. Okay. Fact, I'm going to put it in the comments again. All right. Because again, I'm going to say this again for you out there that they're like, you know what? I don't know if I want to be a yoga teacher. I don't know if I want to teach. In fact, you and I had that conversation, I think.
Yep.
Um, if you just want to do it for personal transformation, or you want to do it as far as building a soul sister community, because you'll be part of a small group and have a mentor, then you're still welcome to join us, because it's also for personal transformation. It's not just for, I want to be a yoga teacher or I want to be a coach. Okay. So I'm going to put it in the comments again. And then let's talk a little bit, Eve, about your experience with your mentor, what that was like with the practicing, with connecting, like you mentioned, the soul sister community, what it was like working in the learning management system. If you can give people just a little bit more of a framework of, because some people that are really into like the details, they want to hear some of this stuff from somebody other
Yeah.
than me.
Yeah. 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 And I was and am still that type of detailed person. So
Right.
I can understand and definitely support that. Um, so I would say my biggest apprehension in the beginning was, what does this look like? Like, what do I have to do? When do I have to do it? Somebody give me a schedule. And it, for me, that was that type A personality coming out. I was very uncomfortable with how relaxed. Now I'm like, oh, this is this is great. But my brain could not comprehend how this could not be more, this is what you do at this time, at this day. This is what's due on this day. You know what I mean? I really was seeking this structured, and I think that was like maybe one of the first things that I had to swallow was,
Mm-hmm.
okay, calm down. Like, you are not in control, and you have to relax and follow the process of the system itself, and just, what is, maybe this is part of and I said to myself at one point, like, maybe this is just part of the experience. Like, this is breaking that, like, have to be specific ways. But stepping back now, being through it, it's very well organized. The learning center is very easy to follow. Everything is laid out. As soon as you have support from your mentor in your group, and you will find that your soul sisters in your group with you will absolutely help you answer questions. I think somewhere along the way, between the first cohort and the second, we started using um, an application to talk with one another, which made it, and it wasn't Facebook, but it made it much more um, attainable to get answers and
Mm-hmm.
connect with one another in our small group, instead of people that might not be in our specific cohort and in another cohort that's overlapping in time.
Right.
So that definitely was an improvement and helped. um, Back to the learning center itself and the website is very well done. And the learning center taxonomy, basically the layout of how things are put within um, the learning center itself, are very easy to follow. And you start in module 1, and you follow the courses within module 1, and then you move to module 2. Now, what I will say is, it's very common, and what I've come to realize now, being in the second cohort, is that everyone sort of moves at their own pace, and there isn't this expectation that by the end of this month, that A, B, and C have to be done. If you haven't gotten you know through module 3 by the end of the first or second month, and you're dragging that it's fine, it's okay. Or if you're ahead, if you are you have more time on your hands and you've moved forward, that's okay as well. There are specific requirements that you must meet in terms of how many classes you have to teach, how many lives you have to attend, even if they're on replay, which is fine. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there are specific requirements, obviously, in order to be certified, but it is very flexible to your schedule, to your lifestyle, to what fits you,
Mm-hmm.
and there's nothing wrong with that. It's okay to be in that part, as long as you're making these requirements, and you're meeting with your group when they meet, because it's really important to come together as a unit and learn from one another. We teach to each other, and it's not, literally, some of us read right from the script that's in front of us, just to get comfortable
Mm-hmm.
in front of the camera, and to get comfortable in front of other people, speaking and walking them through meditation, or physical yoga, or whatever that module might be focusing on.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that to be very valuable, because you have your peers in front of you to give you feedback, and there's
Mm-hmm.
not a lot of pressure. Everyone has a small or a large feeling of stage fright, but
Mm-hmm.
being that we're all on the same journey together, we're all trying to attain comfortableness with one another, it makes it a lot easier. So
Mm-hmm.
very important to stay close to your group too. It definitely will lead to lifelong friendships.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm a big proponent of that, Eve, because for me personally, a lot of my closest friendships have come from teacher training. And that's one of the many reasons why I run these programs is there are not a lot of environments like this that create that level of connection and community.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is because you are sharing so much of yourself with the other women in the group. And there is an invitation, right, and there's an encouragement and an inspiration and motivation for everybody to share, right? Because we want to be able to, name it, to claim it, and get it out into the world, whatever it is that you need to transform and move through. And there is no pressure though, right? If you don't want to share anything, you don't have
Right.
to. So, and I think that is the intention behind how we put this all together, is that that I'm a big advocate for mindful self-compassion, right? And being gentle with yourself and being kind and compassionate with yourself. And so when I put this all together, I wanted it to not put more pressure on somebody, right? Especially because a lot of the women, a majority of the women are like you. They are working full time or running a business, or they may be a full-time mom and they have, 3 kids. You know what I'm saying? So
Yep.
everybody's busy. So I was like, how can I juggle this and put this together so that it is not a burden onto the student, that it allows them to get through the content as they're able to. And we're also on the honor system with yoga, right? So we're not like pressuring people, like you said, where it's like, you have to have the first month done, like, by 30 days, or, we're not putting that kind of pressure on anybody. And there is no pass fail in our program. We're not passing and failing people.
Right.
Okay? So it's important for me to mention that too. So you don't have to be scared like that we're going to fail somebody and not give them a certification. Okay.
Right.
So as long as you are following the basic requirements, which we're not asking, a lot for. And we, like you said, we make it really easy. We've created like the whole guided meditations, the whole teachings for breath work. You could literally follow it word by word. And a lot of people, when they first start teaching, that is how they start. And that's
Yep.
okay. If you, like, when I first started teaching flow or meditation, I had everything written down. I had it on my phone so that I make sure that I didn't forget it in the middle of a class. Do you see what I'm saying? So
Yep.
you have to start somewhere, and it's okay if you're reading. It's a process of learning, and eventually you'll do things off the cuff and you'll get to that point. But
Yep.
um
I was reading in
yeah.
one of my teaching sessions because it felt comfortable, and then all of a sudden I closed my eyes and I was not reading anymore. And then at the end they were like, "Oh my gosh, you just did that without reading." I was like, "I know, where did that come from? I have no idea where that came from." So that was I won't forget that, because it was very interesting and rewarding and
Right.
fun. Yeah.
Right. And there's more of that that's going to be happening, by the way.
Yes.
That's just the beginning, right? Because you're just in the early stages of
Yeah.
the teaching and the mentoring. And I'm super excited um, as we get more into the planning of next year about how we might be able to work together. And I did actually reach out to that place in South Carolina, by the
You
way. So
did? And
I did. I already heard back from them this morning, but I haven't had a chance to look at it.
oh, I'm so
So
excited. I want to know what they say.
I'll let you know.
It has your aura all over it. Yeah, very, very peaceful, very beautiful.
Yeah, because I know last year you were going to try to come to Asheville, and I
Yes.
think something was going on with your vacations, or something happened that it didn't align. But so we're working on getting her to a retreat next year, which we
Yes.
still have to set the dates for. Um, okay, so I'm trying to think what else. I guess one question I have is, if somebody was coming to you, Eve, and they were like, you know what, I'm thinking about joining WiseMind Yoga, or, what's Jennie like, that kind of thing. Is there anything that you would tell that student out there who might be like, well, I'm thinking about getting on a call, but
Yeah. I would say if you're thinking about it, then it means something to you, to your soul, and to your path forward. If you're playing with that tug of war, should I not? I would say absolutely. There's nothing that should hold you back from gathering information, having a conversation, even if you're just trying to plan for next year. Jennie and I, like she said, I didn't make, which I really, really want to go to a retreat. And so I want to make that connection deeper and do that with a group of people that will probably be part of my life forever after that experience, right?
Mhm.
And so we're talking about this for next year, and I'm already
Mhm.
in the program. So think about um, if you are even being pulled or inquisitive in some way,
Mhm.
it does no harm, and there's no expectation. It's very, care for your, my fear was always like, oh, I'm going to waste her time by, pulling her aside from her business and talking to her when I may not even move forward. I don't know where I'm at right now. And
Mhm.
yeah, in hindsight, that's silliness. So definitely, follow your gut, follow your heart, your soul. And if you're feeling at all pulled or tugged in that direction, or you feel like you want to make some changes, either personally, or maybe you want to grow a business that interests you in, there's business modules that are offered as well, all kinds of teachings. And I would say definitely, give yourself the gift of opportunity and at least a discussion about it, for sure.
Well, I appreciate that, girl. Are there anything else that you can think of that you want to share? Because
Um,
we've covered pretty much like everything.
yeah, I would just say that to expect the unexpected if you come on and in a very good way. I didn't expect, I was seeking change, but I didn't know what that would look like or how that would transform within my life or within myself. And I'm very, very happy and consider myself very blessed that I came across Jennie and her program, and have made the many friends and connections and internal growth of myself
Mhm.
that you can't really find in traditional um, psychological therapy. And there's definitely a soul and a mind experience that happens here that is very calming and peaceful and adds direction. So,
Yeah, and I think also to add one more thing to that, um, I think like this concept that a lot of us do as moms, and I think also as like the people pleaser, right? Um, that we don't put ourselves, we put ourselves last. And I know for many, many years, I felt like self care was selfish. And whether that was working out, whether that was going to do yoga, whether that was, whatever the thing was, right? So for me to actually, I did years and years of therapy, right? On and off, starting in my 20s through
yep,
my 40s. And so I've done my share of talk therapy and different types of therapy, and it's all good. So I'm not saying anything
definitely.
that it has its place in the journey.
Yep,
But as far as like getting into, like you said, the physical somatic release and rewiring the mind and healing the heart space, it is like a full mind, body, spirit transformation. And so I just want to kind of mention that too, because I've seen a lot of people that have like gone through, different approaches, but haven't been able to get to the point where they want to be. Does that make sense?
absolutely. Yes,
This kind of helps them to go deeper into that transformation and
yeah,
releasing the things that aren't serving them anymore. And so it again brings me a lot of joy to be able to watch that, to know. Now, if you've never done any kind of therapy, that's okay. It doesn't mean that you're not a candidate to join us. And I did want to mention one quick thing. I'm rewinding for a second. Way back, kind of like midway through, you mentioned about with the family interactions, like the reactivity stuff and like getting triggered and all that kind of stuff.
hmm
Um, I'll share about that. That's definitely been a huge part of my journey. That again, you can't 100% ever say I'm never going to get triggered, right? That's just not possible.
right.
Okay. But you can significantly reduce it. And the part that has been really transformative for me is that I have been able to get to that place where a majority of the time, not all the time, because there's going to be things that are going to trigger you. In fact, there might be things that are going to come up that I don't even know yet that could trigger me, right?
Right.
but also looking at it as a gift in some ways, that when that does happen, first of all, it's a message, right? It's a message to your nervous system and to your mind that, oh, there is more transformation, I know more work that needs to happen in this area. And the second piece is going closer or working, I guess, more diligently around the emotional reactivity, even though, again, I've made huge, like very, very seldom, like, do I struggle with anger or like some of these other things that I used to. I mean, it is so like 1% of the time. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
um, but I think to be able to have that piece of calm and peace in my relationships, but also with my daughter, with my parents, with my sister, with like all
Yep.
these other relationships around me, and my friends, obviously, and my students, right? That that is just one of the many things that I've seen all of these tools that you learn impacts your life, right? So I just want to mention that because I really struggled with not being able to control my emotions because I was in trauma response all the time. And I didn't know that that's what it was. So there's a lot of people running around right now, Eve, in trauma response or
Yeah,
in fight or flight,
definitely.
and they have no idea what's happening. Okay.
Yep.
They're just in the matrix, right? They're in that loop.
Yep.
So,
It's hard to recognize it and hard to get out of it, but
right. So
there
once
are
you
things that
start having the self-awareness,
yep.
then it just, right. So I invite you, if you're in that place of self-awareness where you know that something needs to change and what's working for you is it's no longer working for you. That's a good
Right.
way of putting it, right? So the things that used to work for you are no longer working for you, okay? And they don't serve you anymore. Then again, book a custom consultation with me. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. All right. Okay. So I am sending all of you so much love, light, and blessing. And Eve, thank you so much for taking the time to be on
Absolutely.
here. I know you're super busy and you're in the middle of, you're going to be going back to work on Wednesday. Like,
Yeah,
I
I'm
so
excited.
appreciate you like taking the time. And I'm so grateful for all of your support and your kindness and your kind words, and like none of the text or the things that you've shared or this interview or any of the things goes without like me noticing. Like it
I
really
know.
does mean a lot. I mean that from the bottom of my heart.
Same
Anytime
here.
someone's giving like that type of feedback, I mean, you know this, you know, I've
Yeah.
worked so hard on this program. So
Yes, very much.
any kind of feedback, I'm so grateful. And I'm so grateful that you have my back and like you are, you know, one of those women that you're like a true soul sister, that you are 100% like you've got my back. And
Yes, I will be teaching at some point.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, definitely. And
Yep.
we'll definitely talk more about that. And I don't know if you want to share, is there anything you want to share that you can see yourself at this point doing? Have you gotten to that point where you've kind of worked
I
through?
don't think it's still evolving and changing. So what I thought I might be um, trying to use my gifts for in terms of helping women or abuse survivors has sort of morphed into maybe like a larger thing in my mind. And
Mhm.
I don't even think I can verbally articulate exactly where I feel like my heart's being pulled, but I feel like it's still transforming. So for me, I feel like I'm still on that journey of trying to, without even trying to figure out what I want to do with, my new skill set. It's more of where do I feel like the path is leading me, and for me, like where does God really want me to put my focus. And so as that formulates, I think it's going to still take time. I think it's premature. Where like, maybe even 4 months ago, I'd have been like, yeah, I know what I want to do, this, and this. And I'm like, nope, that's totally changed. So definitely don't know what I want, obviously, or where like it should definitely be set in stone yet. I feel like I'm still growing. So once I figure that out, then I'll take action and do something with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I know that you will. I know you'll do amazing things, and I can't
Thanks.
wait to be part of that journey and to watch and to just know that you don't have to know all the steps, right? You just have to know the
Yeah.
next right step, whatever that is. And
Yep.
it's going to be a process of evolution, right? Like the things that you do 3 or 6 months from now are going to be different than what you do a year or 2 years from now, right? The things I'm
Yeah.
doing now are completely different from when I started. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just that process, like you said, of aligning the soul aligned action of where does, like to your point, where does God want you and what is your assignment and where do you start on that journey and your
Yeah.
destiny and all of those things. And it's so exciting to watch. And I can't wait to be
Thanks.
part of that journey with you.
Thanks. Thank you for the support through all of it. Very
Of course.
appreciated.
We will be talking more, girl, I'm sure. I know it. But I'm really jumping off now. So I am sending you all so much love, light, and blessing. Again, Eve, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And we'll connect soon. So I'm
All right.
sending you so much love and light. We'll see you later.
Thanks.
Take care.
Namaste, everyone.
Bye. Bye.